Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tracy Rosenthal. I work with the Reuben Mark Initiative for Organizational Culture and Leadership at Columbia Business School. I am excited to welcome you to a very special organizational leadership series event featuring a conversation with Cole Riley, founder and CEO of Wellfare, and Ray Liu, third-year JD MBA candidate at Columbia Business and Law School. So today's program is a featured event co-sponsored by the Tabor Center for Social Enterprise, which educates leaders to use business knowledge, entrepreneurial skills, and management tools to address social and environmental challenges, as well as the Eugene M. Lang Entrepreneurship Center, which supports students and alumni in solving big problems and leading change within a collaborative environment of continuous learning. And, of course, the Reuben Mark Initiative, which leverages the intellectual capital of Columbia Business and Law Schools to teach the leadership skills necessary to create optimal organizational cultures. Reuben Mark is the former CEO of Colgate-Palmolive, was a visionary in the discipline of organizational culture, and we are thankful to have his support. So before I introduce today's moderator, I want to share that we are partnering with Wellfare to offer a one-time service learning opportunity at their pop-up outpost in East Harlem on Saturday, October 21st. We are still looking for a few student volunteers. You'll get the chance to see how the operation is run, distribute grocery boxes to families in need, and register new community members for the program. So if you're interested, please either sign up using Okay, I'll get the QR code working, or you can come talk to us afterward. This is a first come, first serve opportunity. So now I'm excited to introduce Ray. During graduate school, Ray has dedicated his time to tackling pressing economic and environmental issues, working at Impact America Fund, the Social Entrepreneurs Fund, NYC Law's Economic Development Division, and the DFC. And as a student attorney to nonprofits, the co-president of CBS's Social Enterprise Club, and a member of the Food Bank for New York City's Junior Board, Ray knows firsthand about the societal challenges we will discuss today, as well as the inspiring leadership needed to confront and disrupt these issues. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember to sign in using both the QR code and this sheet of paper I'm going to pass around to receive your PPIL credit. And over to you, Ray.
Hey everyone. Done? Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Tracy, for the introduction, and thanks to everyone for being here. Really appreciate y'all joining us. I'm excited to introduce Cole Riley. Cole is the founder and CEO of Wellfare. It's a disruptive and innovative nonprofit seeking to challenge food and poverty alleviation here in New York City, especially right nearby in Harlem. Before Wellfare, Cole led Founders Give, which is the largest private food relief effort in New York City during the pandemic. Before that, Cole attended a couple of schools in New York, including one downtown. And yeah, please welcome Cole, and let's dive right in.
Hey everybody. Hey,
thanks, Cole.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course, thanks for joining us. So, you're a lawyer by training, but worked across consumer goods, venture capital. Would love to hear a little bit about how you got here into Wellfare.
Yeah, so the journey has been like a lot of people, left and right, a lot of pivots. In 2019, I jumped into food after a couple years practicing. I graduated Brooklyn Law School in 2016, tried a couple different things, worked at Douglas Elliman, practiced, worked at talent agencies, worked at NBC Universal. But then in 2019, I jumped into food, which was kind of out of left field, and started up my own yogurt brand in upstate New York, trying to be a Hamdi impersonator, trying to build my own little Chobani in upstate New York. But in 2020, I made a big pivot. I had come to know a lot of food and beverage founders from across the city, trying to build a brand. And 2020, in March, as the pandemic started to pick up steam, I saw an opportunity. And a lot of these brands were sitting on excess product that they couldn't sell through retail, and they wanted to make some type of difference. And over the course of a weekend, I got donated warehousing, donated trucks, got in touch with some of the major hospital systems across New York, and created this community of 10 brands, and then eventually it blew up to 300 brands, to streamline product donations into these facilities when more doctors and more patients were in there than ever. So that was Founders Give. And yeah, it's been pivots all over the place, but as soon as I got into this space of purpose, of social impact, of doing something for someone else, and utilizing and leveraging these incredible food companies, I knew I landed on something that was really exciting. And over the course of those 10 weeks in 2020, it was the largest private relief effort in New York City. Bigger than Feeding America, Salvation Army, American Red Cross. We were moving more product than anybody else and making the biggest impact I think we possibly could. So yeah, a lot of pivots, but my education, kind of my background at NYU, that downtown school, and Brooklyn Law kind of set me up, gave me a great foundation to be able to make those pivots with confidence and eventually land doing something that I love, that I think has a lot of potential.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that rundown. I think the North Star throughout all that is like a focus on social impact and mission. I'm curious, like, is there a guiding point, or what motivates you to work in this field?
Well, I think in 2020, after this Founders Give campaign, I made the decision to go all in and eventually start Wellfare, which we'll talk about a little bit. I saw an opportunity in this nonprofit space, an opportunity to take the pillars of really exciting, hungry ventures, startups that are going out there trying to drive disruption, raising incredible capital, and apply that to a nonprofit, to a 501c3 model. And can we take that type of what I call ruthless altruism to drive actual change, not to be another give back kind of marketing effort trying to do good in communities, but actually disrupt this space, at least with just food insecurity and food access? Can we build an organization that does go head to head with Feeding America? Not collaborate with them, but challenge them and eventually beat them, and beat all the other nonprofits that we see as just kind of being another Band-Aid on this problem. So that realization that summer that there's something here that we can do. I got a lot of exposure during COVID behind the scenes of how these nonprofits operate, how these ridiculous government agencies operate, and how slow they are. And then I'm also working with some of the most exciting food and beverage ventures out there that are growing quickly, that are exciting, that are making big moves. So that's why I'm very, very determined to realize what I think is incredible potential with Wellfare. And I found kind of my home in this marriage of social impact and I would say venture. Yeah,
no, it's amazing and inspiring for all of us that, have an interest in social impact or social enterprise in some way. Would love to dive into Wellfare itself, how end up being that second pivot, and like the different incorporation structure, strategy, just from start to where it is now.
Yeah, definitely. So, the way we think of 501c3s, it's a certain way than a regular venture-backed for-profit. We think of 501c3s as, again, these nice, soft campaigns, these give-back efforts, helping communities. We don't think of them as these big disruptive powers that own markets. And so 501c3s, I think, have incredible potential that haven't been really realized. Just some numbers, like since we started in 2020, we've brought in and moved $15 million worth of product donations. I haven't paid a cent for those. Those are product donations from food and beverage brands. We work with them on getting donated full shelf life product and product that is close to expiration, and we move it through our really efficient Better Box program, this free grocery subscription service for families in need across New York. But $15 million worth of product that we can only touch because we're a 501c3. We have 1,500 volunteers who are packing boxes, who are distributing boxes, who are signing up families, again, because we're a 501c3. We can go out and build this incredibly large, exciting organization and not be necessarily handcuffed like traditional for-profits are. But we can go out there and build something that, again, challenges not just Feeding America, but I think traditional grocers like Key Food and Seatown and Whole Foods and these larger grocers. So I just think 501c3s haven't been tapped enough. I think that what we want to build is, again, that marriage of a nonprofit and the excitement of a for-profit.
Definitely. And jumping even into like the day-to-day, you know, you're the only full-time employee at Wellfare. You have a huge network of volunteers that you tap into. Let me talk a little bit about what that looks like from a leadership and organizational standpoint for you.
Yeah, that's the one downside of being a nonprofit is I can't go out there and try to raise $2.5 million or do something like that just out the gate. We're a little scrappy to start. So yeah, I am the only full-time employee, which is a little insane. We have an 8,000 square foot warehouse in Sunset Park. We work with 110 of the best food and beverage brands in the company. And like I said, 1,500 volunteers, an advisory board and a board of directors made up of really cool folks from food and bev and retail and venture. But what's unique right now is I have to consistently galvanize new groups of volunteers. I have to galvanize partners to try to get that product out of them consistently. And I am the middle of the spoke in the wheel, or whatever that is, that phrase. I'm in the middle of the wheel, all these different parties right now, trying to keep our costs as low as possible to survive, to get us to that next stage. So I have to have, even though I don't have 15, 25 employees like other nonprofits may have, I have to have a very sound structure that maximizes everybody who wants to get involved. That volunteers packing, advisors that want to spend a couple hours a month talking to us, partners that want to do stuff, that want to amplify us on social. How do I maximize everybody to their fullest ability, because I don't have those 10 folks right now. Yeah,
totally. And you know, there's another group, you know, involved in your nonprofit effort, which is the constituency that you serve. We'd love to hear a little bit about, you know, building trust in the communities that you help through Wellfare.
Yep.
You know, I know you're active up here in Harlem all the way down to Brooklyn, you know, run the warehouse. Like, how does that look like in the field and on the ground?
Yeah, so central to our whole organization, and it's a big flaw that I see with other nonprofits, is this thing I call direct to need, where we own as many parts of the process as possible. The partnerships, the fulfillment, the distribution every month to families that we've signed up. And we've framed this box, this free food box, with around $250 worth of donated groceries, all better for you premium goods. That's what we focus on right now. Kind bars, vitamin waters, vital proteins. Those are the brands that we're working with and delivering every month. But we've structured this box as a subscription. It's free food in, free food out, but it's a subscription. And right now we're in East Harlem, we're in Bushwick, we're launching Lower East Side in November, and we have 1,800, 1,900 households signed up. And that's really unique. That doesn't exist. A lot of food pantries and food banks and churches, people are really walking in. It is quite an anonymous relationship. You know, you may know the person at the front, but there isn't a subscription format where you're tracking feedback, where you're talking with folks every month and asking them, hey, what would you like in the next box? What didn't you like? Having that direct relationship, it's key to the entire program, is going all the way through direct to need. But the relationship with the customer is what really sets us apart from other food organizations that frankly are just dropping food off to somebody else to distribute to families in need and taking credit for it. We want to own it all the way through. So for any volunteers that are already signed up in East Harlem, October 21st, anybody that wants to, you'll see the process. There are our boxes, it's our distribution point, it's families that we have had signed up for a year, 2 years, asking feedback questions about the last products we delivered. That's what develops trust, is having that clear line of sight to the customer. And that's something that a lot of for-profits, a lot of startups value, is owning the customer, something nonprofits completely take for granted. And it's central to what we do, is have that direct customer relationship.
Yeah, I find that really insightful. You know, I've had some experience working with pantries and other food nonprofits, and it's a really good point. It's a very anonymous relationship. You know, like people will come, there's not really a sign-up process or anything. It's, you know, it's ad hoc in a way, and the way that you've done it at Wellfare is really interesting, really innovative. We'd love to hear like what's next, like long-term wise for the organization. Like I know you have a lot of things in the works, a new location on Lower East Side. We'd love to hear about the future trajectory.
Yeah, so this was really informed after the second deliveries we did in 2021. First deliveries, we signed up a bunch of households, passed out 350 boxes in Bushwick, and then we came back the next month. And that's when we started asking questions about the products. And again, just clarify, it's not produce. We're not doing produce or meals. We're doing these better for you convenience goods, all these premium versions, alternatives to Coke and those types of products, low sugar, low salt. And we started asking questions. And there is an incredible appetite for these types of products, on top of obviously just premium groceries and produce. But we started hearing, where can I buy this? Where can I buy? My kids, I don't want them drinking Coke. I don't want them drinking Sprites. But they're the cheapest options. You go into any bodega, any low-income neighborhood, it's dominated by high sugar options. I want to put a LaCroix, I want to put a Lemon Perfect, the products you see in Whole Foods, the products you see on Instagram and TikTok and bus shelters. I want to put those products in my kids' hands. Where can I buy them? How much are they? And obviously, the elephant in the room is these products that we're receiving donated are incredibly high priced. They're ridiculous. And this is just the case. We know that premium food and premium groceries are too expensive. Free food programs like ours are a Band-Aid. We have a better Band-Aid, I believe, more efficient Band-Aid. But where we want to go is we want to become a grocery store, a nonprofit grocery store, selling these types of products and produce and prepared meals in a small brick and mortar format in neighborhoods across New York City and beyond, featuring dynamic pricing and elevated customer experience, a Whole Foods level type of store shrunk down to the size of a 7-Eleven. Families, the majority of families signed up for our program are either on SNAP or WIC. There are massive, massive programs out there that are putting some cash in people's hands, but the retail options in these neighborhoods are a disaster. And then on top of that, these food pantries are a disaster. So creating this brick and mortar retailer, that's where we're heading. We've got the backing of, again, some of the greatest food and beverage companies in the country. But we're really moving in that direction based off of that direct relationship with the customer. And hearing not just that second delivery back in 2021, but every single month. I would pay $2.99 for the Bonza right now. It's $5.99, but I would pay $2.99. Or I would pay $1.29 for the Lemon Perfect. Oh, I love those Sanzos or those Swoons or Sounds or the litany of different low sugar or zero sugar beverages. I would buy a 12-pack of Olipop's if it was $1 a can. So can we create a retail model that makes that a reality and leverages our 501c3 status to get these better products in these neighborhoods and go to war with these low-cost grocers that are poisoning low-income communities? So that's where we're heading. And the free food program will exist. It will complement what we're doing, what we want to do next year, but the grocery is where we're heading.
Yeah, no, it's an amazing effort. I think one last point in the supply chain at Wellfare are the brands themselves, like these big groceries that you have partnerships that you've partnered with and help your effort. Curious, some at the business school, of course, people will end up working at some of these, larger grocery brands, and do you find yourself working with these brands, and how can people at these brands sort of help support efforts like yours?
Yeah, I mean, typically what I've found, and from the very beginning, and now it's just an established fact, is these brands struggle to find a place to donate product, whether it's product just a part of their mission or product that is getting close to code. It's got 3 months of shelf life and a retailer doesn't want to put it on the shelf. Product, maybe it's a SKU that didn't perform that well online and they want to just pull 2 pallets. Maybe it was just a mix-up at a 3PL. Where do you donate? And I always thought that this was like the focus of Feeding America, is like to figure out how to rescue as much product as possible. But there are cracks in the whole system. And we've owned this better for you CPG space, making it as seamless as possible to donate product. They get a tax write-off. That's a big incentive for them. But we make it as seamless as possible, working through the operations flow of, getting that donation approved, getting it to our warehouse, and then also knowing where it's going. We're not just pushing it off to some church or to some other nonprofit. They're going in our boxes to the families we've signed up. So when working with brands, I lead with the operations play, I lead with the tax, lead with the impact, and then there's some other itches I have to scratch. You know, you have to itch that marketing scratch sometimes. Some of the larger companies are looking for a little bit of a marketing angle, whatever. Cool. If it means that I can get 10 pallets of zero sugar vitamin water or Olippops, I'll itch that itch and get that product to our warehouse if that's what it takes. And we're not sacrificing our mission. But yeah, with brands, I mean, you know, we've made it as simple as possible. I was just at, if anybody knows, Expo East, a big natural products expo in Philly every year. We have 40 partners there. We signed up another 10. But your second part, which was to...
Like people who are working at these brands, eventually, you know, efforts, how will they support, or how can they best support efforts like yours, you know, to try to, you know, create social impact within the organizations that they might be working for?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the elephant in the room, which I think I already said elephant in the room before, is that, you know, these food companies and a lot of mission-driven companies, they have this big, bold mission, but that comes right at the head with the profit motive and trying to get that return for their investor. Like, that is hard to balance a big, bold mission. Pretty much every single brand that we work with is a mission-driven brand. They're trying to do X, Y, and Z, whatever it may be. Their products are $6.99, $7.99. Like, okay, is anyone going to call this out? So it's hard for them right now. That's why there's an opportunity right there to be a grocery store, to become that gateway where we're dynamic on the pricing, where we can become a gateway for these premium price brands to get in front of this customer at a price they can afford. $6.99, $7.99. It's because they're using premium ingredients. It's also because they want premium positioning. But it's a tough conversation with a lot of folks from these companies and just companies beyond that want to do good, but there's a limit to how much they can do.
Totally.
And so that's where we see an opportunity. Folks want to be able to sell their product to more customers 100%. There's a big customer base here that is dying for better for you options. There just isn't anybody out there with the guts to create a model to make it work.
Totally.
But yeah, it's a tough cookie to crack for them.
Yeah, no, it's a challenge on all fronts. It's curious too, like from the existing big food nonprofits, like whether you've had interactions with them, responses from them on this new model that you're trying to build.
Yeah, I mean, Feeding America, it's a part of their mandate that they can't sell food, which is crazy to me because that is the only way I see solving food insecurity is to disrupt the retail side. That's it. You have to figure out the grocery side. And Feeding America, which for everyone, we all know Feeding America, but it's a network of independent food banks across the country, 200 food banks, including here, City Harvest and Food Bank for New York. And each food bank has a network of food pantries that they move product to. They can't sell food. On top of it, these food banks, like a City Harvest, they only distribute 3% of the food actually into people's hands. The rest are going to pantries and churches and soup kitchens. More middlemen, more people taking credit for what's happening. So I'm a big, big critic of Feeding America. I don't think enough people are criticizing them, just like people don't like to criticize a lot of nonprofits. It's tough. Why would you want to, shit on an organization that's trying to do good? But you have to challenge the status quo. That's the for-profit type of energy I want to bring to this, is you have to challenge the status quo. Why is food insecurity still a problem, despite billions of dollars funneled into these nonprofits? The model doesn't work, and it definitely doesn't work because there's no vision of retail, in my opinion. But I have relationships with Food Bank for New York and City Harvest, and I'm very vocal that I'm not the biggest fan, but they have the reach right now, so I have to play good, play nice. But I think that they're an antiquated, they're a dinosaur. I think these big food nonprofits are dinosaurs. They're more in line with these old, stagnant government agencies that are just keeping the system afloat. They're not solving the problem. 40 million people shouldn't be on SNAP. 40 million people should not be going to food pantries. We should have a better system in place, and that's what we want to try to start to build towards.
Totally, it just shows that the chain of disruption and innovation exists not only in the for-profit business world, but also should exist in the space for nonprofits.
Certainly, and just the simple thing of just cutting out the middlemen. Cutting out middlemen. I mean, we've seen a wave of direct-to-consumer consumer brands find power in doing that and cutting out retailers and distributors as much as possible. It's tough, it hurts, but you have that direct relationship with that customer. And central to the existing food bank system right now is 1 million people in the middle, all taking credit for meals delivered and people fed and communities served. And you still see people sit in lines at food pantries, still unable to access affordable premium groceries.
Totally. And so for a lot of the students in this room, they're interested likely in like having some sort of social impact, social enterprise involvement in their careers, or jumping into it fully. As someone that's doing the work, would love to give a couple of pieces of advice to anyone that's hoping to pursue a career path similar to yours.
Yeah, I mean, one of our like corporate values, and it's kind of silly because like it's like mine, it's just me, and I don't have any full-time employees yet, but it bleeds through to the volunteers, it bleeds through across everybody who's involved in the company. I call it ruthless altruism. It's finding a little bit of anger, applying a little bit of anger and a little sense of urgency to some of these big problems. I think social impact, I don't really even know what that means, social impact. It's kind of a tough phrase to wrap your mind around. I just see that there is incredible opportunity across all these different fields where there is inequity and inequality just in the country, whether it is education or health or food. And there are these hungry for-profits, these startups that can't really reach this customer. And then there's the nonprofits that are giving back. And there needs to be something in the middle. So I think adopting that attitude, it wasn't from the very beginning. It was after a few months in this, I could see that this was going to become this soft nonprofit or a soft social impact initiative that food brands could give back to. It's not fulfilling and it won't drive change. And it's been the approach for the past 50, 60, 70 years around these issues. So I think that whether you are starting your own company or working at a company or starting a nonprofit, I think that attitude, a little more sense of urgency, is desperately needed across all these different fields. And then beyond that, I think that precision. I have to be incredibly detailed. We're moving a lot of product. We've got a lot of customers. We've got a lot of volunteers. And I think that precision is another thing that I see with a lot of social impact initiatives that, they're a little messy. You can't really tell what's happening. I've seen it at these big food banks. It's not as clean cut as a well-backed venture is. And so precision and attention to detail, but more importantly, that ruthless altruism, that's something that I think can benefit everybody.
I love that phrase. Yeah, definitely going to be in my repertoire from here on out. You started your career in something aside from food. There's obviously a pivot point and inflection or maybe you'd always planned on doing it. Would love to hear about your thought process as you made that transition and how it felt then and your decision making and to get to where you are today.
Yeah, I guess show of hands, who knows exactly what they want to do or where they will be in 5 years? Exactly. Anybody? I didn't at all. I went to law school. I kind of didn't want to be a lawyer, but I worked at SAG-AFTRA and I worked at some law firms and then I worked at NBC. Should I be a lawyer? Should I take the bar? Wait, I'll start a yogurt company. It's everybody around me was this guy's nuts. And my wife's got this nice, very formidable job. She's at the New York Times and she's this editor and everything. And then I'm over here doing a million different things. I'm the inventor in the basement I got a new idea. I was always motivated though. I always had one string that was going through, which was I always wanted to lead something. I wanted to do something big and lead something of my own eventually. So, it was finding that sector. I found it with food, and I think that was the biggest realization was that I may not know exactly what that position is and what I'm doing, but there's a sector here. And I was kind of into entertainment for a while, and then I was over here real estate, and then I was over there. But food allowed me, once I got in it and I started that yogurt brand, I was able to pivot. I loved the space so much. And then I started to see the ugly side of the space. Not these big fancy food brands on the shelves of Whole Foods. The food access issue, the 40 million Americans on SNAP, the struggling moms with kids trying to figure out where to get food, going to 7 groceries and bodegas and food pantries, and our box program trying to make ends meet. And I could pivot, taking the same network with me from one stop to the next, and not just cut off networks and cut off because I'm jumping to a completely different sector. So once I realized that I wanted to be in this space, you know, nonprofits, it's an extension of it. You know, nonprofit's just a corporate entity. It's just a structure. But this is a food business. We want to build a grocery store. We just happen to be a 501c3 focused on a specific type of customer. So finding that sector was the best thing that ever happened. It took me a really long time. I told my wife, and I told her family, I told everybody, my goal was to just get the train on the tracks by the time I'm 30. The train doesn't need to be going 100 miles per hour. It just needs to be on the tracks pointed somewhere. And I'm not gonna like make this big pivot and try to be some like content creator or some crazy thing. Like, it's food. But yeah, that happened in 2019, and I've been in this food space ever since.
That's amazing. Is there anything in particular about food that really connected with you, like a history with it or anything along those lines?
I mean, I could ask anybody to list 3 opinions of a grocery store. What are the favorite things that you love about a grocery store, the 3 things you hate about your grocery store? Everybody has an interaction with, at least grocery. I can talk about food in general, but just grocery. Everyone has to interact with grocery, and I love that. I love that we can build something that can reach everybody. It's light and fun food, for me at least, the reason why I started that yogurt brand is because it was actually kind of cheap to start that business. I didn't need to go out and get my own commercial kitchen and my own farm. I could use somebody else's. But I love food, and it's a great community of brands and people, but it's something that reaches all of us, and everyone has an opinion. On grocery stores, which if anybody has opinions, please talk to me after about what you would like to see in this grocery store. I need more insight.
So obviously this is hosted by the Reuben Mark Initiative, which has a focus on leadership styles and leadership characteristics. You obviously operate a very unique and distinct, innovative organization, which obviously requires different forms of leadership or different ways of approaching what you might think of, you know, leaders. So we'd love to hear like about your personal leadership style, what you think has worked for you for this leg of your career.
Yeah, I mean, my personal leadership style, it's unique. It's not leading a group of 10 folks every single day, going in and planning out that week, which eventually we'll get there. It's, you know, figuring out how to articulate our mission and my passion in a very short format to galvanize a volunteer who I just met, who just came down, like someone, like a student can, on October 21st in East Harlem, come down and they kind of don't know what they're doing for the day. They kind of have a pressure that they should probably volunteer more, and they're there and they're in East Harlem on East 115th and Park, and they're gonna pass out boxes. And I have to figure out how to get them inspired, excited, invested, and also turn them into brand advocates, because they're going to go out and start signing up families right now. We're not just passing out boxes, we're signing up a bunch of new families. So you have to answer questions right there on the spot. Who are we? What do we do? What's in the box? Why are these products better for my kids? Figuring out how to articulate what we do in a very small, you know, package is central to my leadership style. I have to do it. I only have small windows to get 75 employees from Mondelez to go pack boxes for 3 hours in our warehouse in Brooklyn. Like, these people, after a long day of work, they're thrown into a bus, told to come down to Brooklyn because it's a part of their social impact initiative or something, and they're all standing there blown out, sweating, and I have to get them all excited to pack boxes for 3 hours. Why does this matter? Why are we moving the needle forward? I think it helps that we have a vision. I think if I'm just advocating for helping communities, that doesn't do it. Doesn't do it for me. It's not enough. It's too surface level. When we talk about that this is planting the seed for what we want to do long term, is definitely making an immediate impact. It's removing a lot of sugar from a family's diet. It's getting good food in people's hands. But there's a longer term vision here. That helps a lot too. But it's the most difficult thing is how do you articulate yourself? Like, how many times have I rewritten my deck? Oh my God. I mean, anybody who's written decks and done businesses, like, you know the deal. Like, how do you write your mission statement, or why you exist, or what is your purpose for existing? What's your vision? What's your theory of change? Those things take a long time, but once you land on them, they become central to how we grow.
Yeah, they stick.
Yeah.
This last question for you, obviously speaking again to the students in the room, just one piece of advice for you when you're in their seats, or when you're thinking about doing this thing, like just one grounding sentence for you.
I would say don't sleep on 501c3s. I think that there is so much potential with that business structure. It's really like dry to talk about it like that, but we are a Delaware nonprofit corporation. It's really very similar to your regular corporate structure, but we're grounded by our mission. We're governed by the State Attorney General's office to stay true to our charitable purpose, which is really unique. I don't have shareholders. I don't own this business. Like, today, the board could just vote me out, and I lose the keys to the warehouse. It's crazy that you don't have that protection, but you're not guided by a profit motive. That becomes a feature. That's something we need to be sustainable, certainly. But instead of being a mission-driven brand, we're a venture-driven nonprofit. We want to grow just like any other company, but we're governed by this mission. It's not a B Corp certification. It is central to our whole structure. And I think that there's so many exciting ideas. There's so many bullshit ideas I've had in my life that wouldn't work as a for-profit, but if you did it as a nonprofit, and you look at this customer base, 30, 40, 50 million Americans, whether it's a housing thing, or it's a grocery thing, or it's cars, or an app, or whatever it is, and you start looking at this customer base, that's when you can really stand out and you can drive actual change and do something really disruptive. You go out there and build a company that competes for the same customers, just like all these food brands I work with, they're all competing for the same Whole Foods customer, the same person that's grabbing the same kombucha every week. There is a huge opportunity here to change communities. And I think the only way to do it is to do it as a 501c3, where you can leverage government agencies, you can leverage companies, you can still raise a shit ton of money from foundations, but it's all central to that 501 structure. So I just think that investing time in learning how 501s work and applying 501 to your cool app idea or whatever, I think it's just something a lot of people sleep on, especially MBA and JDs, like 501 all the way.
Totally. Well, cool. Thank you for sharing your journey and mission with us. We're opening up to the Q&A portion of the talk, and we covered a lot of ground, and happy to field any questions.
Hi, thank you for being here. This is great. I come from a public education background, and you were talking about getting families kind of hooked on these brands if they were available. So I was wondering, and I do think that's the way, right? Especially with the better for you, you got the people who are kind of addicted to the thing they're addicted to are going to be harder to change the minds of than someone young who is just handed something because it looked cool. So I'm wondering how you go about attracting new people, and specifically young people, to these brands, and then also if you thought about working with public schools.
Yeah, so there is this big, assumption in low-income neighborhoods, not just in New York, but across the country, that there's this education hurdle, and that you're going to have to come in and teach people. It's kind of condescending, the whole thing, but it's something that I assume too. It's just you're going to have to come in and show people lower sugar meals and lower salt meals. There is a huge desire that exists. There is a massive chronic health crisis in low-income communities. You've got massive rates of diabetes, of high blood pressure, of heart conditions. And so our focus to start on convenient nutrition, which is what I kind of consider all of these products, on the go, ready to drink, low to no sugar beverages, grab and go snacks, supplements like protein powders and immunity mixers, those types of things, there is an immediate reception to them. And households, specifically moms with kids, are ready to adopt immediately because it's low to no sugar. You're cutting thousands of grams of sugar intake a month just from one box we're bringing in. We're bringing in 24 beverages, usually 0 sugar, and we know, because we're asking the next month, how much of those products did you use? And did you swap out the 24 Sprites or the Cokes that you would have normally purchased for the kids? And it's usually 98%, 99% utilization of the products and a swap. There is a deep desire for better groceries, and a deep desire, I would say, just more overall for balance. You know, folks in affluent neighborhoods aren't eating organic lettuce 24/7. They're grabbing a burger from McDonald's, then they're getting something that's a sweet green salad, then they're grabbing something that they can make at home, something with less sugar, something with high sugar. Balance. We want to bring in some balance into these neighborhoods, and there's a customer here that we assumed we would have to teach a lot, but right away you can see there's a desire, especially families with kids. That doesn't mean that we just drop boxes off. There is a whole inside, there's a flyer where we talk about each of the products. The products speak for themselves as well. But you know, I talk about better for you customers that go into Whole Foods. It's more of a want with them. There's more of a want for those types of products. In these neighborhoods, there's more of a need for less sugar. There's a need, and that's why there's this opportunity to be a grocery store. There's a need for less sugar, especially less sugar beverages. So to the second point about public schools, yeah, we work with some schools. We've done some nutrition classes with students. But again, you know, the elephant in the room is, you know, you can talk about products all you want, but at the end of the day, they're too expensive. The low no sugar options are too expensive. But we've done nutrition classes. We do a bunch of stuff with public schools coming down and volunteering. We've done giveaways and after school stuff. So the schools we want to have as a big part of our program going forward.
Hi, thank you again for being here. This is very interesting. I was wondering how you go about sourcing your brand partners and whether there are any other nutrition criteria you look for, you know, besides low sugar, any other, I don't know, ingredients you specifically look to avoid?
Yeah, so we follow the Whole Foods banned ingredients list. They're a partner of ours, so I just thought, why not just use their banned ingredients list? That doesn't mean that some products don't kind of slip through there, some more indulgent products. That's perfectly fine. You know, like a Belgian Boys or some of these types, or a Kind Bar even can sometimes have a little bit of sugar in there. But if a product can be sold in Whole Foods, that's good enough for us to start. We want to create our own product standards. Certainly with our own store, we'll have our own product standards. But top level, it's low to no sugar, low salt, low fat. And for most products, some level of functionality. Not just some empty bar, but sometimes a protein in there. Say supplements, for example, like protein powders. Food banks don't touch those. We're one of the only nonprofits in the country that touch supplements. But Whole Foods is our guiding principles. It's not perfect. And again, there's a lot of holes that you can poke at about our focus on packaged and better for you package. You can really like needle that focus. But it makes a big difference in having that Whole Foods list. It guides which brands qualify and which products within brands qualify.
Here.
Hi. You mentioned before a little bit about the challenges of obtaining funding as a nonprofit. In my previous firm, there was actually a nonprofit called Think of Us, which was located in the office right next to ours. And you know, talking to the CEO, their funding was always an issue, but recently he did get a $3 million fund. I think he's kind of politically well connected too. And so I was just wondering if you could share a little bit about the struggles of obtaining funding and what's been your strategy.
Yeah, so we moved into a brand new warehouse earlier this year in Brooklyn. My main fundraising strategy is getting companies to come in, cut a $10K check, and pack boxes for an afternoon. There's, all these companies, any, medium to large size firm in New York has some type of benchmark that they want to hit every year of doing good and volunteering. And that's what I was talking about, scratching that itch to just get that money in the door and cover our overhead every month. the corporate partners are critical to that. They're the largest part of our pie. So creating these projects where you can utilize their employees, not for some vanity project. We need the boxes made one way or another. So why not use, you know, Mondelez, for example, or some law firm or an insurance company. The typical philanthropy, foundations, major donors, government agencies, we've made inroads in. We've received a lot of funding from them, but it's a longer term play. We're not really speaking their language. They're all looking for, how many meals are you delivering? And I'm like, we don't deliver meals. We deliver $250 worth of product. So there's a language barrier right now where they are expecting a certain type of output that I don't want to create, that Feeding America creates. They say $1 equals 10 meals. They say 1.2 pounds of product equals a meal, which is ridiculous and actually fraudulent. So we're battling. That's why I'm like keeping the salary, the overhead as low as possible, not hiring 10 people because I don't have a lot of money. I'm broke actually. Just like any startup, you're broke constantly. But the companies at the very least, they're not only providing millions of dollars worth of product, but a lot of them are volunteering, and that's been a big funding source for us. But we'll win over the foundations in time.
Thank you.
Hello. Sorry. Thanks for being here. I know that you're just talking about, you know, how you're broke and how you're thinking about scaling. So my question is, like, how do you go from starting in Bushwick to moving to Harlem all on your own, and when do you think you can add additional people to this business?
Yeah, I mean that's the whatever the old saying is, $64,000 question or whatever, the $1 million question. You know, you want to be building sustainability with any business. Don't just think about nonprofits, just you want to build sustainability, but you need to be exciting and growing, you know, at the same time. And that's a constant problem. I have board directors that do not want me to activate Lower East Side because it's just going to stretch us a little bit. But I have more product than I can deal with. And there's obviously a massive need. We focus just on NYCHA households right now, 600,000 people living in NYCHA apartments across the city. There's more than enough need out there. I want to expand. I also think it's a good strategy. I mean, I think, you know, we got Kind. I convinced Kind to help us launch Lower East Side. We're going to get some press from it, and it's going to just keep us relevant as well. So it's tough to build up runway as a nonprofit. That's the biggest problem at the startup stage. It is hard to go out and convince somebody to give you a $2 million or $1 million blank check to just burn through and build a company and see if you guys survive. They're smaller grant amounts, but the way I see it is that however I need to get to this grocery store, crawling to it, broke, this is the future, is the grocery store. That's where we create actual sustainability. We start driving revenue. This pure philanthropy is insane. It is difficult. That's another point of advice I would say is for anybody that does want to start a nonprofit, figure out a product that you can sell, because pure philanthropy is not going to do it. But yeah, it's a struggle. And where can I be efficient and cut costs? It's people. I've got 1,500 volunteers, some of the smartest people across the city, many of which want to help out beyond just packing boxes. It's galvanizing them, making them feel embedded in our mission as if they are a part-time employee. People working 9-to-5 jobs at some random insurance company or something, they want to do something that is a little more impactful. And so I've been able to utilize a lot of people, not use them, but utilize them and embed them into our mission, into our day-to-day. I've got an architect who works at a firm, and she does, you know, random housing projects in Utah. At night, she's doing renders on this grocery store for us for free. And we're going to use those renders in a proposal to the city, to New York. So I don't need to go out right now and go hire 7 people and put them on fundraising and try to, you know, figure that out. I can be efficient right now until we get to this store model. But it's a struggle, and I'm open about being broke. A lot of people like to put a little shoe polish on this whole thing, that it's all rosy, startup or not. You know, we're constantly ass to the wall, always. That's how I always say it to people. We're ass to the wall, like we barely have runway. But yeah, it's a struggle until we get to there, we can finally build that store. Yeah.
Story is kind of similar. I used to work in social impact. I was broke. now I'm a student, I'm still broke.
Yeah.
So, like I had no idea what I'll do like in next 5 years, but I did have some idea of where my organization was going. So my question, my challenge that I faced is what the question is about. Like funding was 90% of the problem for me back then. So I was an engineer turned educator to edupreneur. So yeah, so I was running a social impact education firm. And like for you looking ahead, like just to give an example of COVID did show a lot of food insecurity in America, especially in the rural areas, right? So that's where the most need is. So how will this work out? Like how will the volunteer structure work? How will the corporate funding and partnerships will work, right? Like you did mention about Whole Food format, like a big grocery store, but in a small size, like a 7-Eleven size, right?
Yep.
So will be like Dollar General.
Yeah.
Like yeah.
Exactly. That's the goal, is to become a better Dollar General and push them out of the market. We'll transition away from volunteers, from free product, completely. This will be wholesale product. This will be staff from those communities running these stores, potentially even having ownership in the store as a franchise model. It's going to require partnerships with these cities. City of New York, City of Tulsa, City of Rochester. That's where I'm gearing. That's where the money is. There is an incredible amount of waste at the local, state, and federal level around food access. There is SNAP, there is WIC, but anything beyond that is a mess. And the way we want to position is redirecting that spend from these government agencies to subsidize these stores. These stores will feature dynamic pricing with multiple price points for each product. Different customers coming in and buying the Olipop at $2.99, $2.29, $1.89, $1.19, depending on their tier. So we're going to be able to drive revenue, but trying to integrate volunteer labor, like it's not going to work. Then you go into co-op land, and that's impossible to scale. But these small format stores with a small amount of SKUs, powered by a government agency or potentially a foundation if it makes sense, that's going to be a sustainable model. And we've got the food and beverage brands in our corner already. But it's an interesting model. Now there may be some changes obviously between now and then, between now and Q2 of 2025 when we want this first store up and running. But that's the approach right now, and that's going to provide some sustainability and some revenue.
Cole will stick around for a couple of minutes to ask questions, but it was a privilege to share space with you, and thank you for coming today.
Cool, yeah, thanks Ray, thanks everybody.